Hello, is this on? Good afternoon. My name is Andres Duany of DPZ. Some of you know me since we've been working in and around New Orleans, and some of you don't. And I'm going to give you a very brief summary of what it is that we do and who our team consists of. Our firm is 25 years old. We have been doing planning since 1980, and much of it, in fact, around on the Gulf Coast. Projects which you may know of, such as Seaside, which are greenfield projects, obviously new communities, but they're all based on the kind of urbanism that you have here in New Orleans. Our firm has also worked, and this is less well known, on inner cities of different kinds. The one that's the closest is actually Baton Rouge. And the Baton Rouge downtown plan, which is currently being implemented very quickly and successfully, was a plan that we prepared 8 years ago. We've also worked in other capital cities like Providence, Rhode Island, another plan that's taking off, West Palm Beach, coastal towns on the coastal downtowns on the west coast of Florida. We were the firm that was called by Governor Barber of Mississippi to organize the Mississippi charrettes, the 11 cities that were planned 6 weeks after the hurricane, and which the reports of which all 11 cities were prepared and submitted within essentially within 4 weeks. And you may have seen this. They printed tens of thousands of them, but this is the summary of the reports for those 10 cities. The reason I mention this is that we're a firm that works very quickly, and I think that urgency is one of the things that's most important here. You've waited enough, and the money is flowing in, and things are going to go very badly wrong if the planning doesn't happen very quickly. We were also the firm that was retained by the LRA, the Louisiana Recovery Authority, to prepare the plans for Lake Charles and Vermilion Parish, including Delcambre, and so forth, but also, and this was reported in the Times-Picayune, so you may know of it, we prepared the plan for St. Bernard Parish, which is really tough. That was a tough place, as you know. All of these plans, every last one, 6 of them were adopted officially at the latest within 10 days after we presented them, which is to say that we were able to resolve the issues quite thoroughly. And so they were able to get on with implementation. After these events, we, of course, were fascinated and very much in love with New Orleans, and we volunteered to do the Gentilly Plan, which took place about 6 weeks ago. And the plan is, in fact, just to prove that it exists, is in fact relatively complete. This is a very thoroughly prepared draft. The problem is, the reason it hasn't been returned is that this process began. And once this process began, to submit this plan without knowing that we were the planners for Gentilly would have caused confusion. So we're holding it. But the fact that you do not have it does not prove that in some way we're inept. It just has to do with the fact that we got confused in this, the usual confusion. Incidentally, Gentilly doesn't have to choose us. We'll still finish it and give it to you. That's not an issue here. In terms of how we work, those of you who experienced any of these charrettes, including Gentilly charrette, you know that we bring the entire team in place for as long as it takes, and we work in your presence. We don't just take notes, go home, and bring the report back. We do it entirely in your presence, and we're able to present to you at the very latest on 24-hour cycles. You ask for something, you see it the next day at the same time, and often sooner than that. Another aspect of the planning that we do is that we're very straightforward with people, and part of our rough reputation is that we tell it like it is. And I think that one of the things that's so crucial here is, in fact, what we discovered by doing all of the Louisiana and Mississippi charrettes, is that what people actually need is information so they can act. They just need information and clarity. And they're not particularly interested in good news. They need to know what, in fact, affects them the most, so they can make a business-like decision about their houses and about whether to reconstruct or not. So it's not emotional. It's not like they're not letting me rebuild, or I don't want to rebuild, or he doesn't understand that I don't love this place, or that I love this place, or that I might come back. It is all about saying, what are the prospects for your house if you are to leave it where it is, if you are to raise it, if you're to rebuild it, if you're to sell it and move away, etc. And we've developed some very interesting protocols, which are called decision trees. And this, of course, is in the experience of St. Bernard and so forth, in which you go step by step and say, if I have this kind of house, these are my choices, and once I make this choice, it's this choice, etc. Now, if FEMA would ever stop being a moving target, we would also give you clarity about what funding corresponds to that, you see. And hopefully at this point, those days in which FEMA is slippery is over. One of our consultants is, one of the consultants in our team is Duany. Duany is one of the largest engineering and planning firms in the world, and the reason we selected them is that they have more, at least they tell us this, they have the greater number of FEMA infrastructure contracts. Okay, so the reason we need them is that they understand the belly of the beast. We needed somebody that knows how to get into FEMA and get some answers. And there were plenty of engineering firms, great engineering firms, big engineering firms. This one knows how to extract information. So that's been extraordinary. We've also, by the way, the charrettes that we prepared for Lake Charles, Vermilion, Paris, and St. Bernard were done for the LRA, the Louisiana, as I said, and they're the ones that, in fact, are also associated with this. So there are some very distinct connections. The other partners of the firm, of this firm, let me get these enormous lists that are required. There's quite a bit of call about, are you from here or you're not from here? And obviously we're not from here, but many members of our team are from here. And we have, of course, local architects and planners, the SRF group, and also Grover Mouton of the Tulane Regional Urban Design Center. We think it's important to connect with at least one university because students have a certain vitality. The principal that has been with us in all of these Louisiana charrettes is Steve Oubre of Architects Southwest. He's from Lafayette, but that's pretty close. And the reason that he's an excellent consultant is that he built an absolutely marvelous community, in my opinion, called River Ranch in Lafayette, which is based very closely in New Orleans, and it's one way of kicking the tires. You know, you want to see what it looks like when you write certain codes and you build a certain way and not just talk. You can take the 2-hour drive to Lafayette and see River Ranch and see what you think. But anyway, Steve he's 2 hours away, I grant you, but nevertheless, that's pretty close. And by the way, if you want a commitment, I have bought a house in the Marigny. So, and by the way, by way of warning, if nobody selects us, we become a citizen, and then we're, and then we'll be listened to, actually. Anyway, we do, and actually, the reason being here is so important. I'm actually convinced that the next 10 years are going to be one of the most creative in New Orleans. In fact, this is going to be the scene for 10 years. You know, this is like Prague was in 1990. You know, it's going to be the place to be, where decisions are being made, where the action is, where the talent is. Everybody's going to want to be here and participate in it. One thing, because we've been called on this, there is a green component in our team. Jonathan Rose and Associates are a firm that is dedicated entirely to green projects, and may I say private sector green projects, not subsidized green projects, but green projects and green building that pay for themselves. And I think it's important that this carry itself. I'm sorry I can't introduce you to my team.